Greetings, geometry students. Today we're going to be looking at the third type of transformation that we have inside of the Cartesian coordinate plane. Please copy down your title, Rotations in the Cartesian coordinate plane. Let's take a look at our objectives for the day. Our stated objective is to learn to apply rotations to objects in the Cartesian coordinate plane. Now, we've already seen that some of the transformations, there's really not much to them in the graph, and others, there is a bit of a procedure that we have to follow. And the procedures that we have to follow are sometimes conditional, meaning that under certain circumstances we might do one thing, but then under other circumstances we might do something different. Okay, so we're going to see a little bit of that today, where we have a conditional application, conditional set of procedures to follow. In class, the student will demonstrate the ability to rotate provided objects around indicated points within the Cartesian coordinate plane. We should remember that from our discussion on rotations. You have to have a particular point that you're going to rotate around. And your essential question for the day, can I rotate an object in a graph? As always, press pause anytime you need more time to copy something down. Do not let the video just run past you if you have not finished copying your information down. Press pause and then hit play when you're ready to move on. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, now rotations, as we said, going to be a little bit tougher than the other guys that we have seen so far. Okay, now a couple of different situations that we're going to deal with. Okay, one of the most popular rotations that we are asked to perform is the 90-degree rotation. So let's see what we need to do if we're asked to rotate 90 degrees. Now, in your ordered pair, remember that the ordered pair has an x value in it, which is called the abscissa, and a y value in it that is called the ordinate. The abscissa and the ordinate are going to switch places. They're going to swap places with each other. And when this happens, it's going to move you from one quadrant in the graph to a different quadrant, an adjacent quadrant that is also in the graph. When this happens, there is definitely potential for sign changes on your abscissa and your ordinate, because we're going to be crossing axes. So we're going to be going from possibly the positive side of one axis to the negative side of an axis, or vice versa. 180-degree rotations aren't quite as popular as 90-degree rotations, and the reason for that is 90-degree rotation, they can have you rotate it clockwise or counterclockwise, and that gives you two different answers depending on which direction you go. 180-degree rotation doesn't really matter which direction you rotate. We end up in exactly the same spot. So that kind of takes a little bit of the skill out of it. As such, they tend to not ask about 180-degree rotations quite as much, but we definitely see them, so let's take a look at what we need to do there. The abscissa and the ordinate this time are going to stay in their same locations, so the x and the y value of the ordered pair are not going to go anywhere. But once again, the 180-degree rotation is going to cause us to move into the vertical quadrant from where our point came from. So we are definitely going to get sign changes, and you will have positives changing to negatives and negatives changing to positives. Okay, so let's take a look at our little graph here. Okay, first off, let's look at the different quadrants once again. Of course, quadrant 1 is to the up and right of the origin, and that is where all of our sign values are going to be positive. Okay, but the numbering system of the quadrants is quadrant 1 is up and to the right, and then the quadrants are named moving counterclockwise throughout the graph. So up and to the left of the origin is quadrant 2, down and to the left of the origin is quadrant 3, and down and to the right of the origin is quadrant 4. Now, as we said, quadrant 1 is where everything that exists has positive values. We align with the positive x-axis and we align with the positive y-axis. So both of our values in our ordered pair are going to be positive. In quadrant 2, the x-axis is now on the negative side, but the y-axis is still on the positive side. So any value that's inside of there is going to have negative, comma, positive as far as the values on the ordered pair are concerned. In quadrant 3, we are still on the negative side of the x-axis, but now we are on the negative side of the y-axis as well. So you should have a negative, comma, negative for your values in your coordinate. And on quadrant 4, we are back over with the positive x-axis, but still on the negative side of the y-axis. So we have positive, comma, negative on our ordered pairs. Okay. Now that's important information to remember, not only for getting everything else that we've been doing with our graphing, right, but also for the rotations, because when we move from one quadrant to the adjacent quadrant or to the vertical quadrants, we're definitely going to see some sign changes, and you can absolutely miss these questions just by messing your signs up. Okay, so let's take a look at an example here. We're going to start off with a triangle, which is currently sitting in quadrant 2. We got triangle ABC. And we got a pair of instructions that we're going to do here. So we have two different rotations. One thing that we're going to do is we're going to rotate triangle ABC 90 degrees counterclockwise around the origin to get triangle ABC. Okay, actually I think I misspoke there. We're going to, after the rotation, of course, we won't have the pre-image anymore, so we'll have triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. We are also instructed to take triangle ABC and rotate him 180 degrees clockwise around the origin, and that will give us yet another triangle in our graph, which will be triangle A double prime, B double prime, C double prime. And again, they can use as many prime markers as they want to, and basically this is just to eliminate any confusion in a graph. We don't want to have two different point A's, two different point B's, so if we put prime markers on one of the point A's or one of the point B's and so on, that definitely clears up any confusion about which point is point A and so on. Okay, now if we're going to be rotating these triangles all over the place, then clearly we're going to have to know what the coordinates of triangle ABC are, because definitely we're going to be switching and swapping abscissa and ordinate values, so we better know what those values are. So let's take a look. Point A is at, oops, sorry, there we go, negative 6, comma 2, okay, negative 6 on the x-axis, positive 2 on the y-axis. Point B is at negative 4 on the x-axis and positive 5 on the y-axis. And point C is at negative 1 on the x-axis and positive 3 on the y-axis. I'm sure you could have found those values for yourself, but I went ahead and provided them for you since some of you are watching the video on your smartphone and this graph is probably pretty small. Okay, so let's take a look at the red set of instructions there. Rotate triangle ABC 90 degrees counterclockwise around the origin to get triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. Okay, well hopefully just looking at the instructions we know that 90 degrees is 1/4 of a rotation. And counterclockwise, if you start at the top of a circle and move around, going from right to left is counterclockwise. So if we are using the origin as the center of our rotation, that means triangle ABC is going to go 1/4 of a turn around the origin, and we're going from quadrant 2 down into quadrant 3. Okay, so let's see if we can't figure out what our coordinates are going to become. Obviously, A is going to go to A prime, B is going to go to B prime, and C is going to go to C prime. Now the rules for rotation said if we want to rotate 90 degrees, then we need to switch the abscissa and the ordinate, the x and the y value, but then watch out for possible sign changes as we move into adjacent quadrants. Okay, well, our triangle right now is sitting in quadrant 2. That means all of his x values are -2, are negative x's, and all of his y values are positive y's. But in quadrant 3, if that's where we end up, all of our values are going to be negative x values and negative y values. Okay, so let's see if we can't get it right here. Okay, point A is at -6, +2. The abscissa and the ordinate are going to switch, so we're going to have a 2 as an x value and then a 6 as a y value. But as we move from quadrant 2 to quadrant 3, all of the values become negative in quadrant 3, so it should be a -2 and a positive or a -6. Okay, sorry, let me finish off my structure there on the screen for the blue rotation. We'll get to that here in just a second. Okay, so there it finally is. The x value is at -2 and the y value is at -6. B to B prime, we got a -4 and a +5. The 4 and the 5 are going to switch positions, so it will be a 5 for our x and a 4 for our y. But again, moving out of quadrant 2 into quadrant 3, everything will be negative. So it should be a -5 and a -4. And we can plot point B prime at -5, -4. C, going to C prime, the 1 and the 3 are going to switch positions, and once more, in quadrant 3, everything will be negative, so we'll have -3, -1. And there is C prime. And then you can finish the problem by connecting the dots, and you have a proper rotation for triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. Okay, now onto the blue instruction there, the blue rotation, rotate triangle ABC. So we're back to the pre-image, ABC, and we're going to rotate that 180 degrees clockwise, still using the origin as a center of rotation. Okay, well, triangle ABC, we're going to get rotated 180 degrees. So we need to know 180 degrees is half of a rotation. So we're going to go 1/2 of a turn around the origin. And we're going to go clockwise, which actually that doesn't matter, because whether you go 180 degrees clockwise or 180 degrees counterclockwise, you're going to end up at the same spot. And that spot will be in quadrant 4 this time. That's going to be important because in quadrant 4, we will align with the x-axis, a positive x-axis, and the negative y-axis. So we should have all positive x values and all negative y values. 180-degree rotation said that the abscissa and the ordinate will not change places. Okay, so we're going to leave the values exactly as they are. We only have to worry about the signs. So as we go from A at -6, 2 to A double prime, we're going to leave the 6 and the 2 in their correct and current positions, and we're going to change the signs so that we will be on the positive x-axis and the negative y-axis. So that means we will need a +6 and a -2. And we can plot that point, A double prime. With B going to B double prime, again, the 4 and the 5 are going to stay put, only we will be on the positive side of the x-axis and the negative side of the y-axis. So we've got +4, -5. And there is point B double prime. And C, once more, the abscissa and the ordinate are going to stay put. The signs are going to change because we are moving to the positive x-axis, the negative y-axis, so we have a point at 1, -3. And there is point C, C double prime, pardon me. And you connect the dots, and there you have your rotation for the image triangle A double prime, B double prime, C double prime. So it's not real difficult to execute, but it is going to be somewhat of a challenge because we do need to get some rules memorized. And unfortunately, we've kind of demonstrated this year we haven't been real good at getting rules memorized. We just write down notes and then we stuff them in our backpack and never think about them again. And that has not been working out very well for some of you on your grades. So we do need to get some basic rules studied here if you plan on ever getting these questions right on a possible quiz or a test. Okay, I appreciate you finding time to get your notes taken care of. Now you need to write yourself a quick summary of what the lesson was about. Jot down any questions that you may need to come to class and ask, and always keep your essential question in mind. Can I rotate an object in a graph? If you can, good for you. If you cannot, then that's your indication you need to spend some more time working on this lesson.